Hello and welcome to the big picture. The last winter session of the 15th Lok Sabha has begun today with only 12 working days scheduled, out of which one day, today, has been wound up only after condolence resolutions to the departed members. With effectively only 11 working days left, the question is how much official business can the government manage to get done? The government spokespersons have indicated their priority is to get such bills passed which have already been passed in either of the two houses. This includes the Women's Reservation Bill and the Nilotpal Bill, among others. The government also has indicated that it is interested in pushing through the Telangana Formation Bill. Meanwhile, the exit poll results have cast a shadow on the parliament session, with the opposition BJP in an upbeat mood and gearing up to take on the government aggressively. Today we will discuss how productive can this session be and whether government would be in a position to get through some of the legislation it intends to. To discuss this, I have with me Shantaram Naik, Congress MP, Nirmala Sitharaman, BJP spokesperson, Nilotpal Basu, Central Committee member of the CPIM, and Vinod Sharma, political editor, Hindustan Times. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Shantaram Naik, it has been speculated, it has been talked about that the results of the elections to the 5 state assemblies will have a major bearing on this session. Do you think that the results will have any such bearing on the session?
See, why the results should have bearing? The performance in the house is different thing. Unless BJP has decided in the beginning itself to create hurdles as they have been doing for the last several years. If that is the intention, this way, results this way or that way, it will not matter. In fact, if BJP had been cooperative, much business could have been passed in the past also. Why BJP did not allow certain legislation to be passed all these years on some pretext or other? If they have got similar intentions, and why they have got this intention, I'll tell you. Very simple. The BJP is supported by RSS. And RSS is anti-democratic. They do not want any parliamentary function to be performed. They do not believe in democratic setup. And
Mr.
therefore,
Naik,
BJP is inspired by RSS ideology. And therefore, they would not like any parliament to function. As simple as that.
Mr. Naik, you made some drastic comments there. Nirmala, apart from those drastic comments which is made, the fact is that do you think that the results of the elections should have a bearing on the constitution, on the functioning of the house, or should have or will have?
The mood in the parliament may be different, but the working will have to happen. And we have said in the all-party meeting that we are looking forward to working so that very critical issues which are pending the parliament's attention will actually receive that attention. And therefore, whilst there are many which I can list of our intention to take on during the parliament session, the top 4 or 5 are very important to draw the attention. We certainly think price rise will be an issue on which we want the parliament to debate. We are very keen on talking about the internal security, particularly in the light of what had happened in Patna, the blast. We are keen to talk about the border-related issues, especially in the light of the killings which happened in Kerala sector. Then we want to talk about security of women. We certainly want to have a meaningful discussion about it because all over the country, I think there is a great worry about it. Then certainly about the functioning of the JPC as regards the 2G report. So these are initially things which I want to talk about, but there are other specific issues on which we'll talk. Agriculture, farmers' suicides, all those.
So all this would mean that it has to be ensured that the parliament runs.
Let them show by action that they want to work seriously.
Let me talk, Girish ji, because I think the government, first of all, when you started it off rightly with the Treasury bench's representative who was here, I would have wanted him to say what the government plans to do in order to help the parliament run, rather than go on with what we've heard always, put the blame on the BJP and keep doing nothing.
Unfortunately,
let me just finish, gentlemen. Let me just finish.
Let him finish, please, Mr. Naik.
Please.
Let him finish, sorry.
Please.
So I would have gladly heard him to say what are the kind of things they are willing to do, what are they, how are they going to approach it. But as usual, even in the almost penultimate session, I guess penultimate
It is a penultimate session.
we are hearing the government only seeking excuses rather than saying we are keen to get on with business. We are
but
very
you
clearly
are keen
stating.
to you are keen to ensure that the house functions. Would you like?
We
would
are
you like-
keen to have the
Show
house-
by action.
Excuse
Show by
me,
action
wait
from
on,
Monday.
sir. Wait on. This is the kind of enthusiasm where you drown the opposition without
by-
hearing them. Please hold on. I'm willing to hear you.
Yeah.
So, my argument is yes, we want to work, we want to see many things happening in the parliament, with one little highlight which I would like to do. Provided the party in power makes sure that their own MPs cooperate and not jump into the well.
Okay. Nilotpal, you think that the assembly results will have a bearing on the functioning of the house?
You see, theoretically it ought not to be, but fact of the matter is it will, because we as a parliamentary system, I think have not matured as yet to the extent that we are in an interregnum between two election campaigns, one which was over just now on the 4th and which will take place sometimes in April, May for the Lok Sabha elections. That the acrimonies of electoral campaigns, I am afraid will come in. But at the same time, I must also say that not just the government, but you see the opposition in the past also, particularly the BJP, sometimes behaved in a manner that it would appear that though two parties are actually in collusion in holding the parliament to ransom and not allowing
Which is
the
the other
parliament
party?
to transact business and
Which is the other party?
have discussion on subjects, I mean, which are vital to the interests of the people.
Which
Therefore, I think
is the other party, Nilotpal?
BJP and Congress together.
BJP
You
and
see,
Communist.
we could not discuss
BJP and
coal
Communist.
scam. We could not discuss coal scam. We could not discuss price rise because of the manner in which the government also created conditions which could be an excuse, and BJP also stopping all business from taking place. And I think therefore it would be realistic to pick some of the bills, because issues on which the whole political system's credibility is really under a cloud, like the Lokpal bill. We would like ideally the Lokpal bill
I'll come to the legislation.
discussion to take place.
Nilotpal, I'll come to the legislations a little later.
No, and also price rise. I mean,
yes,
which
she has-
I believe
She has mentioned, Nirmala has also
influenced
mentioned about
the
price
electorate.
rise. I'm sure it's something which bothers everybody, and hopefully we'll have a meaningful discussion in the House this time. I'll come back to you. Vinod, you think that the election results will have a bearing on the functioning of the House?
Well, to some extent, yes, but it all depends on the nature of the outcome. If the exit polls prove to be correct, then I think that the government will be disheartened and the principal opposition would be on a high. But it's heartening to hear the very conciliatory comments of Nirmala that the opposition is serious about debating certain issues. And I think insofar as price rise is concerned, security of women is concerned, other issues touching the people are concerned, I think it's in the collective interest of Parliament to debate these issues. Because price rise is not a phenomenon confined to one state. It's a pan-Indian phenomenon, and it has dimensions which are beyond India. And I think that the political class owes an explanation to the people of this country as to why there is price rise and how and in which manner do they intend containing it. Because in the recent assembly elections, we heard Sheila Dikshit accusing the Madhya Pradesh government of encouraging hoarding of onions. Now, we would like to hear both sides on the floor of the House whether the charge is true or not. You see, this question is a bipartisan issue. It is nothing which one party alone can be blamed for, though the primary task is that of the government, which is power at the center. Insofar as other legislations are concerned, there is at least one Girish, which must be taken note of. And that is where I think the BJP and the Congress have a broad understanding of letting that legislation, which is a constitutional amendment introduced in the upper house, which is a concomitant step from the accord that India and Bangladesh signed on the exchange of enclaves. No, I think that if this task is not done, the sovereignty of India and its credibility in the international community
Yes.
will be compromised.
Okay.
And I think it's the responsibility of all political parties to safeguard that.
The government has also given some hint that it wants to get that bill passed. Mr. Shantaram Naik, the onus of running the house, squarely rests on the government. You can't just blame the opposition for it and then try to get away from that. It is. I'm sure you understand. You have been in Parliament long enough. You have been in the State Assembly also to understand that the government will have to make all the effort to ensure that the house functions smoothly.
You see, in principle, I agree with you that it's responsibility of the ruling party or ruling coalition to run the house. But here, opposition parties, especially BJP, have proved this rule to the contrary. Because now it is very clear, if you see the results of last several sessions, that it is BJP which has been coming in the way of smooth running of Parliament. Therefore,
Okay.
they have succeeded in reversing
Mr.
the
Naik,
rule.
Mr.
They have
Naik,
succeeded in
sorry,
reversing the presumption.
Mr. Naik, sorry, you heard Nirmala now. She has listed out the issues which her party would like to take up in the house, and these are all issues which are national issues, which are concerns which concerns the entire nation. So don't you think that there should not be any problem in government allowing the discussion on these issues?
There is no problem, but they should allow all the business which is listed or which government wants to bring, not selected items.
What is
not
it
selected items.
No, what
they
is it
must
that
cooperate with
what is
respect
the
to
priority?
all the legislation.
What is
Priority,
the-
forget about priority.
No,
All
what is the priority of the
listed items.
government as far as legislation
there
are
was-
concerned?
See, for instance, I'll tell you.
Yes.
The last session, the bill of street vendors, most common example which affects the people, street vendors bill was not allowed by BJP to be taken up for consideration. Let that bill be priority. Why not? If that bill comes and if BJP cooperates, then I can understand. They have given some consideration. Then there are other insurance bills, pension bills, which affect also common men. Let all issues be taken, irrespective of this thing. Let all issues.
Your ministers have mentioned that the Nilotpal bill, the women's reservation bill are two of the bills which they would like to take up. Nirmala, you think the street vendors bill? I don't think there should be any problem with that. Or the Nilotpal bill or the Nilotpal bill has become a little controversial, but women's reservation bill, the Congress as well as the BJP don't seem to have any differences on that. Why can't the two parties work together and ensure that
I'm
this bill is
glad you
passed?
asked this question, and I hope I will be allowed to finish mine without any interruption. It is very well for Mr. Naik to pick and choose one bill. The circumstances I can explain. Then I'll ask you, he should in all fairness also say that when the pension bill was introduced, they themselves did not in the treasury benches have enough members to bring the quorum in. But for Mrs. Sushma Swaraj, the leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha, intervening and saying, what is happening? Where are our people? Get the quorum and have this introduced. The bill would have been, even at the stage of introduction, in a kind of embarrassment for the government. If he is trying to talk about one bill, I am asking him, even on the one which you were tabling, you didn't have enough homework done. And we came in and stood by.
Record
this is exactly,
with
please,
respect
let
to
me
same
finish.
bill?
Let me finish.
Let them finish.
This attitude of drowning others.
Okay, please finish.
So that is one. Second, on the Nilotpal bill, which you rightly raised, who was the one who created a midnight drama of tearing the papers down? It is their alliance partner. Why are we being blamed for it? Not at all. We were willing to sit till midnight.
Midnight.
All right, past midnight. That's the second example I'll take. And on the women's reservation bill, because you specifically raised that.
Yes.
In the Rajya Sabha, when it was, am I right? When it was passed, It was with an active cooperation of the BJP. But it couldn't come into the
things
Lok
have changed
Sabha
in the Lok
because,
Sabha.
no, it couldn't come into the Lok Sabha because those people who are in alliance with the ruling party created possibly any kind of difference which they should be able to explain, and why were they not able to convince their own partners? So please, let us
Okay,
please put
so
it into
you-
context.
you were instigating them.
Yes, Mr. Naik.
I say that BJP was instigating some of our people to oppose
You
the
can't blame
bill.
the BJP
And
for
that's
that.
how-
If your
that's
people
how
are going to get
the bill
instigated
could
by
not
the
go.
opposition party, what can they do
Sometimes-
about it?
They are alliance
Many
partners.
times you have seen the house, when they do not want to go to the well, they instigate other members to go to the
Okay.
well.
Yes,
So that
Vinod.
blame-
Yes, Vinod. Vinod, you want to come in?
Yeah, I think that there is, I want to say that, the problem with the Women's Reservation Bill in the Lok Sabha is different. First of all, let me say that, while there is a section within the Congress and the BJP that supports the bill, but there is also a vast section within these two parties which is not comfortable with this bill, which is a reality. The only political formation that is for this bill is the left formation.
In the present
and there are
form.
no differences within them. One may, yes, in the present form. And you see, the problem is that there is a precondition which was put by Mrs. Swaraj in the Lok Sabha, that they would not want this bill to be passed amid pandemonium, and they want a serious discussion on this bill. And they were not even willing to accept the alternative of getting marshaled out the small minuscule minority which is opposed to this legislation, because their argument was that if this instrumentality is being used today against them, it will be used against the principal, could be used against the principal opposition tomorrow. So it was an expression of distrust in the ruling formation. Now, I don't want to take positions here as to who is wrong and who is right, but I personally feel that if a minuscule minority is coming in the way of the passage of a progressive and very, very well deserved legislation in this country, that minuscule minority should be eliminated by way of the powers exercised by the Speaker. And we can't allow this legislation to be pending for time immemorial.
Okay.
And I think that as of today, the situation is that they want to show the reflection of the moon in some water put in a vessel rather than giving the moon.
Okay, Nilotpal, I'll come to you. Just Nirmala wants
Just one small point.
I'll come to you. Nirmala wants to intervene. Yes, Nirmala, quickly.
Very quickly. I'm not taking point on point, but because the leader of opposition's name was taken, I'm here as my party representative telling you this. If she stood for people not being marshalled out, it is because she is the leader of the opposition and she has a duty to make sure. And in fact, those who were
They were not in the opposition. They were all,
right. They were all part of the ruling alliance. But in the interest of parliamentary democracy,
in that sense, she doesn't have a responsibility. over them.
absolutely, she doesn't have a responsibility. But that doesn't mean that our party position has changed. But she stood up for a democratic principle. If there is a different voice, that voice will have to be heard, convinced, but not marshal them out. I think it stands for the larger principle of functioning of the parliament.
Nilotpal?
It is very amusing, Girish, when it comes to not allowing the Congress to be embarrassed. The issue in question is pleasing the corporates, on which the two parties are, in spite of all their wranglings, are together. And there they don't care for voices to be heard. I mean, this is very, very clear. And whenever people talk about women's legislation, I think there is a lurking suspicion that they really want to disrupt the House, because that is one issue where whichever party may be in the government, they also always maintain that this issue has to be passed by through unanimity, through consensus. But when it comes to serving the corporate interest, there is no such compulsion.
Why do you, when you're saying serving the corporate interest why are you saying
bill.
that? What makes you say that?
On the pension bill, on all the bills related to economic reforms.
Pension
to
bill
pleasing the
hasn't been
corporates.
passed.
The
Pension bill hasn't been passed, Nilotpal.
No, what I am saying, therefore, they are so worried over the fact that the government need not be embarrassed, the corporates need not be displeased.
So you, as far as the left is concerned, you are in favor of passing of both the women's reservation bill and the Lokpal bill in the existing form.
Absolutely.
Lokpal bill in any case has gone to
Absolutely.
the
We have supported the
Rajya Sabha Select
Lokpal
Committee.
bill. We have supported the Lokpal bill, and that rough age has now been removed. So I think we don't really see any major problem.
Yes.
I would like to just ask one question of Mr. Basu. Am I right in thinking, I'm asking a question, am I right in thinking that in Jammu Kashmir Assembly, when the PDP brought in the anti-woman bill of when the women's children also being not entitled to property, and it was a regressive step taken by the PDP, which was passed in the lower house of the Jammu Kashmir Assembly, but got rejected in the CPM supported that anti-woman bill? Where is this love for all the women's rights gone then?
I think that is a travesty of truth.
You have
Because Mr. Vinod Sharma will bear me out. If some party
One
is
second,
actually
Vinod.
taking on PDP and on all these questions which bring up the question of obscurantist ideas, it is Muhammad Yusuf Tarigami, the leader of CPIM and who is the MLA of the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly,
Sad.
who is taking them
Absolutely.
on.
Sad
So you're denying what she's saying,
Absolutely.
that they didn't support.
that they didn't support.
Please,
That's what
it's on
he
the
says.
record of the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly.
will
Maybe
anyway, we
check
will-
up. That
that
is
is
why
a
I
separate-
asked us a question.
That's a separate issue. When we
It is
discuss
but
that, we will-
about women and women's rights.
Yes, and when we discuss that, we'll
CPM
sure
supported
discuss it one of these
No,
days, and we'll
absolutely.
get both of you on
It's
on
on
the
record
program,
then.
and you can discuss it in further detail. Yes, Vinod. Vinod.
No, I think that this matter relating to the rights of women in Jammu and Kashmir. First of all, the prime ministerial candidate of the BJP wasn't up to date.
I
in his
think
knowledge of
Vinod
ground
we will
situation
keep
on
that
this
issue
bill.
aside
And-
because
and
we are
no,
not
but
discussing
no.
that. We are not
No,
discussing
but
that
I
issue
just-
now. We'll keep that issue aside.
I'm just
Yes.
No, I'm just giving I'm just giving a perspective. What I'm saying is that it's a happy situation that when that High Court judgment came, which was a majority judgment of the full bench in 2002, this bill was brought. This is called 2004 bill. It is. And it was passed indeed, Nirmala is right, it was passed in the assembly, but it was scuttled in the upper house. You know how? Why?
Vinod,
Because one element in the coalition was not in favor of that legislation, which wanted to sought to overturn the High Court judgment.
Okay.
So whichever way, even through the back door, if the opposition has come, it should
We
be
will-
welcomed,
we will
Rather
discuss-
than, and raising this issue now would amount to, Girish, please.
Yes.
This is a national issue. Raising this issue now, or 370 now, will revive that ferment which one saw consequent to the High Court judgment on this issue in 2002.
Okay.
And it was under pressure.
No,
and
no,
because
Vinod,
of these
Vinod,
claims,
we will
false
not-
claims of terror,
let us-
of separatists, that
No,
it's an
Vinod,
attempt to change the democracy of Kashmir, and they brought this bill.
let us not divert the issue from what we are discussing to what's happening in Kashmir. We'll take it up separately. Mr. Shantaram Naik,
Yeah.
one of the things which is being said about this government now, especially after the exit poll results and all have come out, leader of opposition himself has says that it is a lame duck government. It will not be able to function. It doesn't have the moral authority to even get certain legislations passed and things like that. You think that the government has become a lame duck government now?
I cannot say anything about exit poll, but one thing I can very much say that Congress has a long history and Congress has seen ups and downs on several occasions, and those ups and downs have never made Congress to drift away from its responsibility of building India. And it is only Congress can build India or its own
No, that is not
principles. We are not instructed by RSS or any outside agency. Now, since tomorrow, from Monday onwards, we will see RSS will be guiding a particular party
No,
how to
Mr.
behave
Mr.
in
Naik,
the house.
Mr.
How
Naik,
to behave in the house.
Mr. Naik,
Yeah.
the question was different anyway. Nirmala, when your party takes a line that it's a lame duck government and things like that, what is it that what motivation are you going to have to cooperate with the government when it comes to certain issues being discussed in the house or in the functioning of the house itself? Don't you think that by taking this line that it's a lame duck government, the opposition, the leading opposition party has taken a line that this session doesn't matter?
We've described the government, but that doesn't mean in the parliament our elected representatives are not going to do their duty-bound role. So to describe the government doesn't mean that we will not be sitting and doing our job as elected representatives in the parliament. So I don't think there is a mix-up on that. We are
So
very
you don't
clear
think
in doing this and also describing the government. So
we will see how it functions. Yes, Nilotpal, the concept of a lame duck government, by pushing this idea or by propagating this idea or calling the government a lame duck government, you think that the government in power can get demoralized, and do you think that it will have a problem in running this house, allowing the functioning of the house properly in this session?
I think, Girish, we must grow up, because at one point in time all the assembly elections and the Lok Sabha elections were taking place simultaneously. Now, because of the nature of our democracy, it is not so. So every time you are having one election or the other. Therefore, I think it is important to respect the tenure of a government and expose the government on the floor of the house if it is failing to discharge its responsibility. But the parliament and the assemblies should go on. I mean, it is because of that people elect us, and I think we cannot fail them on that score.
Okay.
So this notion of lame duck government itself is an anathema to the constitutional scheme that we have.
Vinod, you think that the morale of the government will get affected, being dubbed as a lame duck government? Do you see that happening in this government? Do you see that in this penultimate session, will they be able to push through the kind of legislations and whatever intentions and plans they have?
Well, of course, they'll have to do it, and I think that governments cannot afford to lose heart, and politicians are used to defeats, if a defeat is really around the corner. But may I say one thing, Girish, that this session of Parliament, which is going to be perhaps the last regular session of this Lok Sabha, because this issue of 370 has been raised, it should be debated in the House to tell the people whether it is required or not required. Because a confusion on this score is not in the interest of India in Kashmir. It is a very serious issue. Because it has been reopened, it has to be closed. It has to be given a decent closure on the floor of the House. And I expect the BJP to bring this up to debate 370.
Okay, I think on that note we need to end. Vinod Sharma's suggestion is well taken. Hopefully the BJP and also the government will take note of it and have a discussion so that there is no more confusion. But let us wait and watch from tomorrow onwards how the house will function. The onus, of course, is on the government, but the opposition also cannot escape from its responsibility to ensure that the house functions smoothly. We will wait and watch. Thanks to all my guests, Mr. Shantaram, Naik, Nirmala, Sitharaman, Nilotpal, Basu and Vinod Sharma. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in the big picture, same time tomorrow.